Brought to you by Lister Pros TV, streaming from Tempe, Arizona. And we're live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, good morning, everybody. Today, this is Jordan Nielsen, host of Real Estate Pros, and we're on Lister Pros TV, and today we have a guest, Parker Turk of Sun America Mortgage Company, and today we're going to be discussing a little bit about reverse mortgages because there's a lot of myths, there's value in reverse mortgages, and there's a lot of company that got out of the business earlier, you know, with the downturn and Frank Dodd. So we can go over some of those myths today. But first, we'll give you an opportunity to introduce yourself, Parker. So talk to us why you got into the mortgage business, how long you've been in the business, you know, what you love about it, and just a brief intro about yourself.
Yeah, I love Lister Pros. Love what you guys are doing here.
Yeah.
It's kind of exciting seeing a bunch of my buddies on the show, and glad that Jordan would have me in, talk a little bit about reverse mortgages. So our company, Sun American Mortgage, started 1984, the year I was born. My grandfather and my dad started the company.
Here, you can just...
Which one?
Oh, this way. Here.
Okay.
Yeah.
He goes back and forth. Okay.
Yeah.
So, Sun American Mortgage started in 84. It was actually a sister company to the Farnsworth companies.
Uh-huh.
So Farnsworth started developing active adult communities in the East Mesa area in like the 50s. And so there's now 4 or 5 master plan communities. But all of those communities are retirement communities, 55 plus. And so when my dad got into the business, most of his clientele were 55 or older. And so he was doing mortgages for people that were buying Farnsworth houses out at, you know, Dreamland Villa, Sunland Village, Sunland Village East, Sunland Springs. And that's when the AARP started lobbying Congress to try and figure out a reverse mortgage program. There were some banks back in the 60s that coined the phrase reverse mortgage, and they would start to give people some of their home's equity, but they had due dates. And so that's where a lot of the myths started, where these banks would give these clients of theirs, you know, these reverse mortgages, take money out of their house, but then if they hit their 89th birthday or their 90th birthday, they wouldn't kick them out of the house, but they'd have them sign the home over to the bank. And so a lot of people still to this day feel like, hey, if you do a reverse mortgage, you either don't own your house or you're going to lose your house. But when the government got involved, the AARP lobbying Congress, they went back and forth with a pilot program in the late 80s, and my dad got involved because he was like, hey, all of my clientele, if this really takes off, they might be able to use the reverse mortgage. And so 89, Ronald Reagan signed it into law. My dad did the first reverse mortgage in the southwestern United States.
Really?
Yeah. So we've been doing it since 89. What is that, 28 years?
Yeah.
And it really grew slowly to begin with. I mean, the first 10 years, people really thought it was too good to be true. And they still do to this day. I fight that concept every single day. And it's only gotten better within the last 5 years because they've made some significant changes. But those first 10 years were rough. And then over time, you know, we've grown to be the #1 reverse mortgage company here in Arizona. We lend in Arizona, California, New Mexico, and Utah. Most of our business is still normal mortgages, you know, dealing with real estate agents, builders. That's still the core of our business. But reverse mortgage ends up being about a third of our business. So
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. So that's interesting how so reverse mortgages, I thought they were around for a lot longer than before when they were signed into from Ronald Reagan's time. So I guess I need a history lesson of reverse
I mean,
mortgage.
like I said, there were even people down in Tucson. It was Catholic Social Services that during the 70s would give out reverse mortgages, but only to people who were terminally ill.
Ah, really?
And so they knew that they were going to live very long, and they would say, hey, we'll give you the equity in the house, and we'll just plan on getting that paid back to us when you pass away with interest.
I can see how it can get a bad reputation. I think, you know, because not necessarily a bad reputation, but there are some of those stories out there where, like, you know, maybe people got taken advantage of because they didn't know what they were getting into, and then they pass away, and then their heirs come in and they look, what is this reverse mortgage that you got going on here? And then you got to pay. But you know what? However it works. So talk to us a little bit about the myths of reverse mortgages, because there's a lot of, like, you know, when I was in banking, it was like, you know, you may want to consider it, you may not. How I always looked at it was, like how it says, it's a reverse mortgage where the bank pays you monthly payments, and it's basically like, using the equity in your house to do that.
Sure,
But
yeah.
anyways,
Most people don't realize how flexible it is. I mean, the main myth that I still hear to this day is that I don't own my house. They think that they're selling. First of all, a reverse mortgage has to be done for somebody who's 62 years or older. At least one of the spouses has to be 62 years or older. And it has to be done on your primary residence. But if you pass those tests, then the biggest myths are that by doing a reverse mortgage, I'm signing the house over to a bank or I'm losing the title or equity. That's not true. It's never been true. You always own your home. You're always on title. You're always on deed. You're free to sell the home whenever you want. And that's always been the case. So that's the biggest myth. The second myth, and rightfully so, is it costs way too much. And for the first 20 years of the program, I would have completely agreed. I mean, the closing costs were really high. And so the only people that did reverse mortgages for the first 20 years of the program were people that were borderline desperate. They had a bunch of equity in their house, but they'd already spent down their 401ks and their IRAs, and then they'd come to us and say, well, it doesn't matter that the costs are 15 grand or 20 grand because that's just 15 grand or 20 grand that my kids aren't going to get, and I need the money now. So we would still do them for people and still save people's lives, essentially. They really needed the money, and it worked out great because they'd live in the house forever. But it wasn't until the downturn that we saw a couple things happen. The government has figured out a secondary market for this. So we process, underwrite, fund all of the loans ourselves.
wow.
Deal, directly with Ginnie Mae. And so by doing it that way, there's no middlemen. And essentially now we get paid almost like a normal mortgage. When the servicing is basically sold, then we can make some money there. That lowered the closing costs. And then 2 or 3 years ago, they made a huge change where if somebody doesn't need all of the money up front, there's several different ways of taking money through a reverse mortgage.
So you could take a lump sum, or you can take monthly payments.
Yeah, you used to be able to take all of it up front if you wanted to.
Really?
And a lot of people did that. But what they did about 2 to 3 years ago is they said, look, if somebody doesn't need all of the money, then we'll lower the upfront closing cost by 5 times.
Oh, wow.
And immediately when that happened, you had financial planners. So I'm a CPA. I kind of have a lot of, I've got a CPA background. I worked for PricewaterhouseCoopers. I've got a lot of friends in that arena. And financial planners started to take note of that. And all of a sudden, articles were being written in the Journal of Financial Planning and, the CPA journals that say, hey, if the costs are low, then there's zero reason why even really well-off people wouldn't put a reverse mortgage line of credit on their house. If you're 62 or older and you have a small mortgage or no mortgage at all, you'd be absolutely stupid to not at least put the reverse mortgage line of credit on your house, because if you need the money in the future, it's going to be there for you.
So the line of credit, it acts like a line of credit. You can, draw on it whenever you need the money and pay it back. However, just like a normal
somebody who's 62 years or older, if they go to one of the big banks and ask for a line of credit, they're going to get a line of credit, and they're going to have to make a payment if they ever take the money out. And if things go poorly in the economy, which they did, in 2008, 9, 10, 11, people saw that their lines of credit were frozen.
Right.
Banks aren't going to let them continue to draw on that line of credit as their value of the house is going down. But with the reverse mortgage, that doesn't happen. And so people, will put that line of credit on the house, hope that they never have to touch it even. But what's unique about this line of credit is it grows over time. The government's willing to give you access to more of your home's equity.
Oh, wow.
The older you get. So somebody who's 62 is going to get roughly 50% of the value of their house. Somebody who's 90 is going to get roughly 75% of the value of the house. But if you don't use the money at age 62, you leave the money in the line of credit, and they guarantee the growth of it. And so that was the concept that financial planners started to look at and said, hey, geez, put it on your property now, so that if we do hit a skid in the economy and your investment properties, your portfolio values tank, the last thing you want to do is go and sell all of that in a down market. But a lot of people worry because that's all they have, So if they have this line of credit, it's tax-free cash that you can use that you don't have to make a payment on. It supplements their income, and it allows all of that to grow back to normal levels, where you don't have to literally cut your net worth in half. So they kind of call it a portfolio protection product now in that situation.
So if somebody had one of these lines of credit on their house and they draw money on it, would they be, do they pay it? Because on a reverse mortgage, you're not making payments to the bank. So say I have 150,000 available. I draw out 50,000. After that, am I going to be making monthly payments to pay that back?
No, and that's the best part about it is that this is the second myth. A lot of people say, well, when you get a reverse mortgage, you're going to have compounding interest, and it's going to just keep going up, which is true. You absolutely are going to, when you get a statement every month that says this is your loan balance and this is the interest rate right now in the low 4s, and they're going to add interest to the loan balance. So the loan balance will grow over time. And the original idea is just, hey, if your house is up here and you take out a little bit of money, hopefully home values go up while your reverse mortgage balance is going up. You can still sell the home, pay off the reverse mortgage, and keep a significant amount of equity, or your kids or your heirs will keep that. But the other big myth is that you can't pay it. You can if you want to. And that's why I'm trying to teach people that are in that situation, get a reverse mortgage. You can take money in and out of the line of credit. Nothing stops you from making an interest-only payment. You can make an interest-only payment, and the balance will never go up and never go down. You can make an interest-only or a principal payment, and it'll still pay down.
You can do principal as
yeah,
well?
You can always pay it back. There's no prepayment
So
penalty.
it functions like a regular line of credit.
Absolutely. It's just if you don't make the payment, they're going to add the payment to the balance.
Yeah,
You know, and so that's where a lot of people.
But that's nice. And if you're in a position where you're not working, or and so you're basically not obligated to have to make a payment, or you don't. It works like the reverse mortgage.
Yeah, I've got a lot of clients that'll make 9 payments out of the year, and then around Christmas time they take a couple months off just so they have a little extra cash flow for the grandkids' presents. Some people will make a payment at the end of the year just to pay the interest to get a tax deduction. If they come into some money, I've had really wealthy people, use the money for business ventures, and then to avoid having to sell land or sell things when they didn't want to, and then wait to sell those later and drop that money right back into the line of credit, and pay the reverse mortgage balance down. So those are the reasons why somebody who lives in their house should do a reverse mortgage. But I think the bigger, one of the most interesting aspects of the reverse mortgage is within the last 8 years, the government's actually allowed us to buy a house with a reverse mortgage. And that's where the real estate agents have really kind of missed the boat up until now. I think a real estate agent's kind of worried because when somebody comes to them and they want to pay cash for a retirement house, that's like the sweetest deal a real estate agent could ever want,
Cash offer,
Yeah, it's easy, don't involve the financing. But what's also interesting is those same people, they're usually the ones that say, hey, I've saved all my life, or, we just downsized, I've got $250,000 cash, and we want to buy a $250,000 house, but then everything they're looking for is $300,000 or $325,000,
right.
But they can't vary off that. And so what the reverse mortgage does is it just expands their budget a little bit, because with basically how it works is we take their age, we plug it into a calculator, and it would tell us what the down payment percentage is. So somebody who's 62 has to come in with 50% of their house. You got a $300,000 house. Your client now just has to bring in $150,000, but they still accomplished their goal of never having to make a mortgage payment again. So now it's starting to expand their budgets, and builders love it too, because builders are looking at it saying, hey, we want to sell people as nice of a house as possible.
You're talking about on a new purchase, they would only have to come in with based on their age.
Based on their age.
And probably less if they're older, right?
Exactly.
It's kind of like a...
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, somebody who's 80 is gonna, I should have these numbers memorized, but somebody who's 90, that's the top, would come in with about 25 to 30%. Somebody who's 62 is going to come in with roughly 50%. So if you just have the cash,
so that you can afford a better home. If you just had that cash and you're trying to buy something with cash.
When I explain this to people, I get 2 types of people. People that say, "Oh, this is great because I was going to spend $300,000 for a house." But now I only have to spend $150,000 and I can get the same $300,000 house, but I get to keep $150,000
right.
for me to live off of and still not have a mortgage payment. Or you get the other people that say, wait a second, you're telling me that now with $300,000 I can buy a $600,000 house and still not have a mortgage payment, So the real estate agents that really understand it and that can explain it to them, or at least get them in touch with somebody that knows what they're talking about, they can really broaden their horizons. Now they open up what they can look at, significantly. or they're at least saving cash for these people to live off of while they're in the house. And nothing stops them from making a payment. If they get it and they've got a $150,000 reverse mortgage on it, you can still make a payment. You can still pay it down over time if you want, pay the interest only if you want. It's just safer because it's a non-recourse loan. And so rather than it being tied to your credit report and you have to make a payment on it, it's not on your credit report. You don't have to make a payment on it. And if we go through another 2008 and home values plummet and you live to be 100 years old and your reverse mortgage, rises,
It's a non-recourse loan.
You don't ever have to pay it back.
Yeah.
And neither do your heirs. And so it's just a safer transaction all around. And that's the exact opposite of what people think. They think it's a more risky transaction. The balance is going up. I'm going to leave less to my kids. All of which would be true if you don't make a payment. And most of my clients don't. Most of my clients actually don't make a payment. They watch that balance go up, hoping that home values go up. But they love it because they don't have that $1,000 or $1,500 payment. They've got the nicer house that they never thought they'd have. And so
their quality of life, instead of, their quality of life is going to be better, than if they went the traditional route,
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. So people always ask me, when wouldn't you do a reverse mortgage? And there are people out there that they want to guarantee that they're leaving a home free and clear to their kids. For those types of people, I say use a traditional mortgage because it will force you to pay it down.
Sure.
Or use cash and just never have something on there. But
it's a more discipline because you built in. You have to with the reverse. It's kind of like you have the option to if you want to.
Exactly. For those that are kind of fiscally responsible, the reverse mortgage is a no-brainer. It really is.
Sweet, man. Well, this has been very informational about reverse mortgages. I hadn't really heard about reverse mortgages till you reached out to me from a while since I stepped out of the bank. But I could see situations where this makes a lot of sense for real estate agents, offering that to their clients or just people, the general public, to know about the reverse mortgage product and know that it exists.
Yeah.
It's not going to fit everybody's needs, but there's some people out there that this definitely would make sense for to do on a home or a new purchase, like you said.
Yeah, financial planners and CPAs have really started to step in and see its value because the closing costs have fallen dramatically. And the last piece to the puzzle is getting the real estate agents to buy in because the real estate agents still feel like, again, they're either taking the cash buyer and introducing financing to them.
Mm-hmm.
But what they got to realize is that I've never had a reverse mortgage fall out of escrow because the qualifications, while there are some qualifications, they're not nearly as stringent. The credit score doesn't matter. It's just, can they continue to pay their property taxes, insurance, HOA? And so we do a cash flow analysis. They do have to have some income. You
Sure.
have to be able to make sure they can continue to pay those taxes and insurance. But it's a much more simple transaction. And, the real estate agents that start to understand that and introduce, especially those that have those types of designations, the senior real estate designations, or that work in the active adult communities, they're going to start to miss the boat, because there will be some people that explain it to them and involve financial planners. And because they're scared of it, they're going to start to see people go other places, that can explain it to them or at least get them in touch with somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. And if somebody watching this is interested in learning more about reverse mortgages or interested in getting one, how do they go about getting a hold of you or reaching out?
Yes, sunamerican.com, S-U-N. I don't know if I have
American.
With an N, yeah. Jordan was calling it Sun America all morning, but Sun American. Sunamerican.com. You can. That's got just a ton of information.
So
on
sunamerican.com. You guys.
Sunamerican.com. Yeah. I've been around for 30 years, so we got that URL early.
Yeah.
But there's other ways to reach out to me. It's got all my information on. I'd love to. If somebody's interested in buying, I've got brochures and things that I can send. This is great because it just explains examples of how you would use it to buy a house. We've got other information on if somebody was wanting to do a line of credit on their existing house. But there's videos on the website. There's information on the website, all of our contact information on the website. We're located in Mesa, but I end up traveling the entire state, sitting down with people face to face. So I'll go to Tucson and talk to some people, Prescott, talk to some people in their houses to explain the reverse mortgage. So we're willing to to anybody anywhere. So
Cool.
yeah.
Well, thank you for being on the show,
Hey,
Parker.
thank
My
you.
son's
What's
name
up?
is Parker,
Is it really?
or my third son is named Parker. I told him this morning, I was like, hey, Parker's going to be on. He's like, what? Parker's going to be on the show.
Yeah,
So
nice.
awesome. Well, thank you for joining us on Real Estate Pros this morning on Lister Pros TV, and we will see you guys on the next episode.